Story 1. It's not about not caring. It's about accepting that we can't control others or events and learning to be okay with it. I pause whenever I feel frustrated or angry and focus on figuring out what I can control and what I cannot, then act on it accordingly. Story 2. Realize that 90% of people do not know what they are doing either. The other 10% are just faking it better. Story 3. Read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Damn. It's a great book by Mark Manson that provides insightful answers to that exact question. Story 4. Stop caring about what others think of you. Also accept that your faults are not your fault, but they are your responsibility. Story 5. Easy. When confronted with some information, ask yourself this: is this something I can control or influence the outcome of? If yes, care about it. If no, do not care about it. Story 6. Realize that many people are just like me and have misguided opinions. So why should I care about what others think? Story 7. Realize that nothing we do here makes a significant difference in the grand scheme of things. We all get the same results in the end. Unless you are a historic figure, you will not be in the history books, and after a couple of generations, you will only be known by name. After a few more generations, you will most likely have been completely forgotten. So why try so hard to care in this life? Story 8. In 100 years, no one is going to remember you. You'll be lost to time like tears in rain. We are literally spinning on a hot rock in near-infinite space, and we only get one shot at things. Some might think that is a bit depressing, but for me, it brings clarity. Why should I care about things if no one will remember? It might be cliché, but just enjoy the present. Ignore the people who put you down or judge you. You are the main character. Do what you want to do and what makes you happy. Forget the rest. That is the end of the story. Just don't be unkind. Story 9. My standard for a good day changed radically after going to Iraq. Did anyone die? No? It's a good day. Things don't matter. People matter. I can replace things. Don't get me wrong, I still care about plenty of things. But I'm not going to let things ruin my time with people. I'm also not going to let people I don't care about ruin my time with people I do care about. If I'm not going to invite you to Thanksgiving dinner or my funeral, I don't care what you think. Story 10. Honestly, it takes practice. Not giving a care generally doesn't mean you care about nothing, just that you care about what is important to you and not about things that don't matter. A big part is being able to accept that there are things you cannot change, which is a lot of what people care too much about. It also helps to be honest with yourself and to be comfortable with yourself first. It isn't an all or nothing kind of thing. Let me give you an example of one of the times when I learned to not give a care. I was working at a clothing store when I was much younger. I had started learning a lot about style and grooming, and I was getting pretty good at it. But I wasn't comfortable. I felt bad because I enjoyed looking good and taking care of myself. To me, that felt like vanity, which was not a good thing. Part of that was because of how I was raised, guilt and all, despite not being overly religious. As a result, I ended up holding people to the same standard as myself regarding clothing and style, almost like peer pressure where I wanted people to care as much as I did about their appearance, to be as vain as I was, to make me feel less weird and uncomfortable. Then I had an honest conversation with myself. I thought, you are allowed to care about your appearance, and sure, that might be a little vain, but it is only unhealthy if you don't recognize it and if you force others to think the way you do, if you let it become toxic. So once I accepted that my vanity was my own and that my preferences were my own, and that it was okay to feel that way without guilt, I was able to let go of the standards I was holding other people to. They were mine and mine alone. I was able to stop caring. I was able to have conversations about clothing and style without judging people and their decisions. I was able to make jokes at my expense, and people could understand and interact with a more honest version of myself. It was liberating. So yeah, that was how I managed to get there with a particular aspect of my life, and it became a moment I revisit frequently when I need a reminder. Story 11. Everyone starts out caring. Eventually, you just run out of it to give. There's a finite supply. Story 12. This instructional video by John LaJoy explains the topic well. Story 13. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus. The obstacle on the path becomes the path. Marcus Aurelius. Story 14. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Story 15. By realizing that the act of caring means that you value something, take a step back and ask yourself how much you truly care. Reframe your energy output. Story 16. Recognize where my ability to change things ends and try not to care about what I cannot affect. Grow within that framework and strive to establish newer and better norms for myself. Story 17. I live by this. Will this impact my way of life? Will it add value? Will it take away value? If not, then I don't care. This applies to everything, including work and relationships. Story 18. I follow the teachings of John LaJoy. Story 19. When you give as much as you can and the world keeps demanding more, you eventually learn how to stop caring. Story 20. I still haven't fully achieved this, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. With that being said, there is nothing better than having a clean conscience and just being a good person. Always have a good foundation because insecurity and caring about what others think is all about how you feel directly about yourself. Being a people pleaser is hard because I feel like I'm not a good person if I don't make everyone happy. Slowly but surely, I've been working on building my own life for myself, being a good person, and telling myself that I am a good person even when others think I'm the villain for saying no or just for standing up for myself. None of that makes us bad, and most of the time, the people who make us feel like we're terrible for setting boundaries are usually just projecting their own insecurities onto us. I used to always hear that wild animals are just as scared of us as we are of them, and maybe that's not always true. It seems like a good analogy for the human plight. We're all scared and terrified. But good news, you are never alone, and if you're worried about what others think, try reminding yourself that they are probably just as worried about what you think. Picture them in their underwear too, and remember what Louis C.K. said, "The scariest person you can think of sleeps." Not a direct quote. Love to all. We got this. Story 21. There are two types of problems. 1. Problems you have control over. Why stress out? You have it under control. Problems you have no control over. Why stress out? You cannot do anything about it. Story 22. Only a fool gets angry about things he cannot control, and only a child becomes upset about things they could have prevented. The reality is I had a difficult life for many years, but now I am stable and thriving. It feels more like I have built resilience and can put things into perspective. Story 23. Why would I care if no one cares about me? Trust me, everyone is the main character in their own life. They do not care about you, so you should not care about them either. Story 24. That is why I do not have an ulcer. I know when to say I do not care. Story 25. What can you do? Why would I? I usually only care about things that are within my control. Story 26. Find something else that you would rather care about and stop caring about what you no longer wish to concern yourself with. Story 27. Probably trauma from growing up. However, there is no point in worrying about things that have already happened. If it has already occurred, I should focus on addressing the issue instead of wasting time. If it hasn't happened yet, while I may feel some stress about it, there is still time to work towards preventing it. Story 28. Behold the field in which I grow my concerns, and see that it is barren. But more seriously, I prefer to stay in my own lane. Story 29. I know that the least qualified individuals have reached positions I will never encounter in my life. Being a better person than those in power is the simplest thing you can do. Don't worry about it. Story 30. Clearly identify your values. When something happens that is frustrating or stressful, ask yourself if giving energy to that issue aligns you more closely with your values or takes you farther from them. If it moves you away from your values, it is a clear indication to let go and move on. Story 31. I've no more concerns to give. My reserves are depleted. I rallied my support, but it's been ultimately defeated. Story 32. I used to be very apathetic. Then I got married and had a child. Now I genuinely care about making sure they are okay. I suppose the answer is to avoid having any dependence. Story 33. I tell myself I don't care, but somehow, at a random moment, those feelings return. It's like an ex I don't want until I do, only to realize I shouldn't want them, so I go back to not wanting them. Story 34. This is what I do when things are bothering me. There is a nearby place where the road cuts through a piece of a mountain. The mountain has many layers of sedimentary rock, one layer upon another. Somewhere back in time, those layers lifted up and bent and curved, forming arcs of what used to be flat layers of rock. When I look at that and realize the tens of thousands of years it took for those layers to end up as they are now, somehow whatever was bothering me becomes insignificant. That's how I no longer let it affect me. It just doesn't matter in the long run. Story 35. I always remind myself that I'm going to die one day and that if I'm only going to live once, I might as well enjoy my time here. Not caring is truly an art because society encourages us to care too much, leading our minds to struggle with letting go. It's all about finding a good balance where you care enough about important things but remain indifferent toward things that aren't truly worth it. Story 36. By not being indifferent, people can become either the absolute best or the worst versions of themselves by losing every ounce of concern and just pursuing something without consideration. In every instance where I acted without being overly concerned, it was because I was passionate about the issue at hand. Story 37. To be honest, it's kind of a curse. I wish I could care more. I want to say life eventually wore me down to the point that I don't care anymore. Story 38. I remind myself of Alexander the Great. He had relationships with Cleopatra, conquered many territories, and accomplished significant feats. Yet, 99% of the current population doesn't appreciate what he did. In 2 generations, your descendants may not even remember your name, let alone your favorite color. Live your life. Have experiences. Ultimately, we all face death. Whether it leads to an afterlife, reincarnation, or something else, it's up to you. Enjoy. Story 39. I usually try to figure out the realistic worst-case scenario and the odds of it happening, then decide if the chance of that happening is worth the effort of dealing with the issue. Often, the realistic worst-case scenario is not as bad or likely as it seems, and addressing the issue can be more of a hassle. Story 40. Because there are over 8 billion people on this planet, it is not my job to ensure that all of them like me or accept me. Story 41. By realizing that most things do not require a concern, life becomes peaceful. Story 42. Focus on the things you care about and have influence over, and aim to improve upon your past self with a growth mindset. I apologize for the length of this message. Just remember to allow room for mistakes. Story 43. I feel it is something that is learned over time. People say they do not care, but a lot of the time they really do. The only way to truly not care is to be in such horrible scenarios that most things no longer faze you. Think about a toddler experiencing their first time out. That is the worst thing that has ever happened to them, and they act accordingly. If someone put me in timeout in some unusual scenario, do you think I or most adults would care? That just means I get to take a nap, and I am fine with that. Another example. Remember the first time you were broken up with? It hurt deeply, and you felt you would never get over it. After years of dating, when someone breaks up with you, it barely even registers as a situation. Story 44. I had to deal with brain tumors to truly understand the importance of not caring within reason. I wouldn't recommend taking my path, but at least it leaves an impression. Story 45. Be like water, making its way through cracks. Do not be assertive, but adjust to the object, and you shall find a way around or through it. If nothing within you remains rigid, outward things will reveal themselves. Bruce Lee. Story 46. Start small. Begin by saying mental no or I don't care. For example, do I need to brush my teeth one last time before bed? No. Do I need to see that video a girl just showed her friends? No. Eventually, this mindset will become a part of your thinking in most situations. Just be careful not to go too far and stop caring about family and other important matters. Story 47. Can you address the situation? Both answers lead to the same solution. We will all die in 100 years anyway. Story 48. Just remember that in about 200 years, no one will remember you. So why care about things you cannot control? Story 49. I find it a bit odd, but I firmly believe that humans are a cute and funny species. I love them. While I don't see myself as entirely one of them, I do most of the time and I respect them. The outcome? I sometimes come across as the coldest person ever. I burst out laughing at inefficiencies. I don't take it personally when dealing with foolish individuals. It's like watching cats. Story 50. When I was young, I used to ask myself whether I would care about something in an hour, a day, a week, a month, or a year. I started doing this when I was around 11. My ability to assess those questions wasn't fully developed yet, but it established a framework for understanding how significant most things we get upset over really are. Over time, this gave me a calm demeanor. While I still have progress to make, it provided me with the perspective that most things are relatively insignificant in the long run. I remind myself that people generally think of themselves more than they think of others. By combining these two insights, I don't let negative experiences affect me much. However, I still genuinely care when it matters, such as in the case of social injustice or other serious issues. Story 51. Life is too short to worry about the small stuff. There have been plenty of times when I used to stress about the little things, and it would interfere with everything else in my life. Story 52. I just realized one day that approximately 25 years after I die, nobody will even know I ever existed. So anything you do or do not do ultimately will not matter in the long run. So just do whatever you want. Story 53. I am too old to care about anything other than what my family and I need. Your thoughts and opinions about me do not matter. Story 54. I don't even have a thought to give, to think about caring, so I can think about giving a thought. If that makes any sense. Story 55. I trusted too many people that I would do anything for, only to find out they wouldn't help me in my time of need. Story 56. The first step was to join the army and be conditioned to accept my own death. The second step was to get used to things changing at the last second and never having the tools, equipment, or people needed to do whatever it was I was supposed to do while in the army. The third step was finding Jesus and putting faith in him. Will whatever I'm about to get upset about matter in seconds, hours, or days? Using that, does it matter? After that, can I actually do anything to physically change the outcome? If I can and it matters, then I should do it. If I can but it doesn't matter, then why bother? If I can't, then why bother? Sometimes all you can do is trust Jesus to handle it for you. Story 57. I cared for a long time. It didn't get me as far as those who didn't care. People seemed to choose friends based on who cared less. So I stopped caring and stopped getting hurt. Story 58. Consider all the possible paths you can take in life and the different people you can become. Reflect on how insignificant the things you feel compelled to care about may actually be. If they are insignificant, then don't worry about them. If they still feel significant, it might be worth your attention. Story 59. For me, it's about perspective. In many circumstances, I've experienced worse or at least found a way out of a similar situation. I grew up in a financially challenging environment. I have been in car accidents, faced a near-miss plane incident, been held at gunpoint, and worked on a fishing boat that caught fire. A few years ago, my wife passed away after a long illness. Despite these challenges, I remain a happy and optimistic person. My mantra is, I've seen worse. Story 60. Life is short and then you die. If you know your time is limited, why would you waste a single second worrying? Story 61. Accept that no matter what you do, any change you make, and every stone you touch will be washed away with time after probably only 2 generations. Story 62. Start asking people to show you how they do things better than you. People will criticize something I create and I respond, okay, let's see yours. Once you realize that most people are just pointlessly critical and are not qualified to provide a valid opinion, you stop paying attention to them. For example, people might criticize a song I wrote, but they cannot even play an instrument. They might criticize my art but cannot draw a straight line. There is no point in wasting your time on these comments. Story 63. You are only capable of controlling yourself. Regarding others, just ignore what you do not prefer. You do not need to join the scene and open cans of worms for yourself. If someone says something to try to affect you, do not get affected and do not respond at all. It makes them feel uncomfortable. What they are doing is just exposing their own character. You are better, immovable, and do not react at all. The thing they said will just hang in the air, making them feel uncomfortable and pathetic. Others will come to your support as you mind your own business. Easier said than done, but I believe silence is the best response, and laughter is the best reaction. You are just trying to have a good time. You can connect with what you prefer and ignore what you do not prefer. It is incredible how what you are doing speaks volumes compared to speaking. By remaining silent, you are indicating that you have little regard for them, not even worthy of acknowledgement. This way, you do not risk draining your energy, as that is all they want. They just seek to drain your energy because they feel incomplete within themselves and do not want to embrace virtue. As much as you can help it, think of the things you prefer, do the things you prefer, and associate with the people you prefer. For what and who you do not prefer, you do not need a reason. All you know is that you do not like that thing. Pretend it does not exist. Life is too short and difficult for unnecessary issues. Live your life. Story 64. You are always in control of what occupies your mind. Things do not have inherent meaning that demands your attention. You are the one who gives attention to things. Instead of letting outside factors take your focus, only give attention to the things you truly want to occupy your mind. The rest does not matter. It is not always possible to disregard everything, but you can pretend and act as if you do not care, and eventually you will not care. Story 65. Until it affects my ability to go to work tomorrow or pay my bills, I really don't see how I could care about it. Story 66. It takes experiencing difficulties and setbacks to embrace a carefree attitude. Once you accept that you are just along for the journey and there is not much you can do to change things, it becomes easier. Story 67. When working on something and you're unsure how long it will last without replacement, consider option 1. Choose to remain unconcerned. Verbally express, "Forget it," and let it continue until it comes to an end. Option 2 involves a mental approach to indifference. If you get hurt but it's not serious, continue with your day. You can only wait until the pain subsides. When faced with bad news, what can you do? Sit around and dwell in sorrow? No, instead focus on what you can do to improve the situation. Option 3 states that everything happens for a reason. When something negative occurs for one person, the opposite may happen for another. For example, if someone receives a promotion that you were also pursuing, will you hold a grudge? No, instead, congratulate them. It's not that serious. Consider how tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year will be. It's not worth the time and effort to remain upset. Story 68. Try working in customer service for 26 years. It's easy to become indifferent about things outside your comfort zone. Story 69. I do not care about 90% of the issues happening in the world because I cannot change what someone thousands of miles away is going to do. I have my family, a nice house, a good job, and friends, and I am happy. I enjoy being outdoors, watching sports, and enjoying life. When someone asks me if I saw what someone did in the government, I always respond no, and I do not really care. Why live your life worrying about all that? Eventually, you will look back and realize it was all wasted emotion over something you never had control of. Like I tell everyone, just live. Story 70. We're only here for a limited time. I wasted 7 years of my life stressing. 7 years I won't get back. The world kept spinning then, and it continues to spin now. Now that I'm older, I realize I was just walking in circles, tearing my hair out the whole time, not even truly living. Then I realized that in the end, we will all end up buried. I understood that I needed to embrace life. If I waste my time continually trying to solve problems that are beyond the capacity of a single person, I will never have truly lived. The world can be difficult, and people can be challenging, but there is beauty in the chaos. There are good people too. Chaos will always be present. This planet has always been wild, and I have to accept that. That's when I stopped caring, at least to some extent. I only focus on what I can actually control now, not on what I cannot. Story 71. Always remember the words of Bill Cipher. Reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram, by Gold. For some reason, not having an opinion on things helps. Either that, or you pretend you have no more cares until something is important. Story 72. What changed for me was the realization that everyone is struggling with their own challenges and they do not really notice my flaws and insecurities. The things I worry about are not even on their radar. Story 73. Oh man, I just think of the exact moment of my death. It's coming and nothing will matter. It's 100% certain to happen. Story 74. Overcoming addiction has made a significant difference in my life. Now, the worst circumstances no longer lead me to contemplate self-harm. After enduring immense challenges, even the hottest days feel manageable. Story 75. Whenever someone makes a negative comment towards me, instead of taking it personally, I try to take a step back and consider how miserable their lives must be for them to say that. It has really helped me stop caring about what other people say about me. Story 76. Change the things you can, ignore the things you cannot. If you have many options for the things you cannot change and cannot pick the right choice, then start with a gut feeling and iterate. It is better to take action than to refrain from doing so out of fear of making it worse. Story 77. If I'm worried about what people are thinking, I imagine them saying it out loud. If I don't respect them for it, then why would I care what they thought? So I haven't worried about it since. Story 78. On the Shortness of Life. A book by Seneca essentially teaches Stoicism. It helped me deal with depression and anxiety. Whenever I was having a rough time, I would read a few pages and take time to process it for a few days. More often than not, I experienced significant self-discovery after reading a page or two. Story 79. Evaluate what is important to you. You can consider what those close to you feel is important, but you are not obligated to care as passionately as they do. Once you have determined your beliefs and priorities, everything else falls by the wayside. Story 80. My method is simple. There are two types of things in this world: things you can control and things you cannot. For the ones you can control, take action. For the ones you cannot, do not worry. There is nothing you can do. Story 81. Itemize the tasks you need to accomplish in a day. Prioritize them. Let people talk. They are just words. Do not place anything above your mental well-being, and be completely honest in your opinions. Story 82. I learned that no one cares anyway because everyone has their own problems. So whenever I feel nervous or hesitant to do something because of the fear of what people might think, I say to myself, who cares? Nobody cares. Then I do it. Story 83. If you focus on negativity for too long without making any changes, you will become so jaded that you will remember when you used to care about things. Now, you would rather stay at home watching television or endlessly scrolling online to get through the day. Story 84. You have only so much time, energy, and resources, both literal and figurative. Why waste them on things that you cannot control, do not significantly affect your life, or do not bring something meaningful into your life? Exceptions apply, and the trick is to use good judgment, which tends to improve with experience. Examples: you must care about things that you may not be able to control or that are not truly meaningful, such as work responsibilities, because rent is due and you need to eat. Your best friend is going through a breakup and is struggling. Although you are not very close, she keeps contacting you and trying to drag you out. You are not obligated to engage because her situation is beyond your control. Ignoring her will not significantly affect your life, and your relationship with her does not hold much meaning. Story 85. I look down at my Give-O-Shit-O-meter and ensure it still reads 0.00. It almost always does. When it doesn't, she is probably mad at me and I apologize relatively quickly. Story 86. It depends on the situation. Are there events happening in the world? I can only control what I have influence over, so I focus on that. I do not concern myself with the opinions of strangers. Story 87. By not devoting an excessive amount of your valuable time and energy to feminism or toxic masculinity. Story 88. By having given too much energy in the past, you realized you were investing your efforts in things you could never change. Story 89. It's all about remembering the phrase, "Not my circus, not my monkeys." If it can't be fixed in half an hour, don't worry about it for now. Using this will teach you how to focus only on what is important to you at the moment. Story 90. By accepting and loving yourself more than you respect the criticism of people from whom you would not be willing to take advice. Story 91. Do not care for the judgments of others. If you carry yourself in the manner of the person you want to see when you look in the mirror at night, then you have nothing to be ashamed of. Misery loves company, and it will find a partner if one does not match it enough. Story 92. Be confident in your convictions. If you believe in who you are and what you are doing, no one else's opinion truly matters. Story 93. It's very simple. My feelings are mine and your feelings are yours. If they get hurt, it's not my problem. If mine get hurt, it's not your problem. We have a problem when you try to tell me how to feel. Story 94. Maybe it's Maybelline, maybe I'm born with it. I had a conversation with my significant other yesterday, and for some reason, most things don't faze me. I'm not sure why. Story 95. I realized at an early age that the opinions and decisions of others do not impact my mental state unless I allow them to. I never got attached to social media or anything like that. People care too much about what others, who have no impact on their lives, think about them. To a point, they do not even live in the moment. Also, by adopting a growth mindset and appreciating that even if I make mistakes, it is an opportunity to learn and grow as a person. I am the person I am, and I believe that person has a good heart and good intentions at the end of the day. That is good enough for me. Story 96. It certainly doesn't happen overnight, but it involves learning to live with the fact that nothing matters in the long run. If I die today, get hit by a car or something similar, the rest of the world goes on. Some will mourn, but eventually I'll be forgotten. It's tough, but learning to accept that nothing matters is accepting that I don't have to care as much. I'm going to keep working to maintain a roof over my head because if I'm going to be here, I might as well try to make it worthwhile. However, I'm not going to try to be what someone else wants. I consider myself a nihilist, but what some don't understand is that it's not all doom and gloom. Rather, it's freedom. I don't matter, so why should I care? Story 97. Lord, give me the strength to change the things I can, the patience to accept the things I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. Story 98. It took a long time for me to appreciate this, and I still struggle with it from time to time. However, one of the key agreements is not to take things personally. What people say about you reflects more about them than it does about you. They are not reacting to you in isolation. The totality of their life experiences shapes how they perceive and respond to you. It is simply not about you. That said, this is somewhat of an overcorrection. It is possible that if someone says you smell like stale herring, you might actually smell like stale herring. But even then, this opinion comes from their dislike of that scent. If they were an animal, they might feel differently. So, while it's important to consider feedback in certain situations, generally don't take it personally. Story 99. One wishes to familiarize your facial features with a fundamental item used in wall construction. Story 100. When I realized I was the only one caring, and nobody else cared, that's when I stopped caring. It shocked my family. Story 101. If everyone did not care, this world would be even more miserable. Yes, accept and submit to certain realities even if they are hard, but remember that this does not mean you should be apathetic. We need the opposite, more concern. Conflict is challenging, but if we teach each other to care more where it is important, at home, work, and school, the world would be less miserable. Story 102. You stop caring if you're exposed to enough of something, whether it be trauma, drama, abuse, or something else. Once you realize your worth or run out of energy to deal with such issues, you either break or become increasingly numb. If you become numb enough, you may appear indifferent regardless of your true feelings because you are no longer allowing it to affect you outwardly. This can also be a sign of depression. When you recognize your self-worth, you usually stop caring about what others say because their opinions are their problem. All you can do is focus on your own well-being and do whatever makes you feel better. Story 103. I've had to learn this while becoming a security guard. Some people can be difficult, and there's nothing you can do about it. Story 104. Perspective. It helps when you have gone through challenging experiences, such as near-death situations or witnessing someone go from healthy to terminally ill. Whatever that pain is for you, use it as perspective. Many people take various situations too seriously or believe that any negative circumstance is worth stressing over, but ultimately, most of it does not matter. If that does not help, remember that you are a small part of a vast universe on a planet called Earth, which has existed for billions of years while your lifespan is about 75 years. In the grand scheme of things, you are essentially insignificant, and no one will remember you. Enjoy. Story 105. We need to unlearn hypothetical negative thought processes and stop playing out negative scenarios in our minds. The truth is that most of the internal dialogue is just a waste of time and energy. Most of life will unfold according to forces far outside of your control, regardless of what your mind says about it. It is like sitting down at night and deciding whether you want the sun to rise in the morning. The sun will always rise and it will always set. Billions of things are happening in the world at the same time. You can think about them all you want, but life will continue to happen. Your thoughts cannot change the weather. You will eventually realize that there is no use for that insentient internal chatter and no reason to constantly try to figure everything out. Ultimately, you will see that the real cause of problems is not life itself, but the turmoil the mind creates about life that truly causes issues. Story 106. Treat life as you would if you were a dog. If you can't eat it or enjoy it, ignore it and move on. Story 107. I believe this is something that happens naturally as you go through life. You gradually learn not to let certain things bother you, and you also stop caring as much about what others think. Story 108. It's an art. You start by not caring much and gradually increase the extent of your indifference along the way. Story 109. If you don't have any care left to give, then you don't care anymore. I've slowly built up my supply of care, and I'm selective about who or what I allow to disturb my peace and joy. Story 110. I ask myself, should I stop caring? That usually helps. For a more deliberate approach, I consider what I should stop caring about. This helps me identify what truly matters. Story 111. I am young and in good health. Many of the people who annoy me will die earlier than I will, and I know that as a fact. Story 112. Just be like, you don't like me? Okay. Can be hard at first, but it improves the quality of life. Other people's opinions are worthless. Story 113. It's not that I don't care. I do care. It's just that my concerns are prioritized based on need, as there are only so many concerns per day. I may have a low demand for concern today, but due to a shortage, they must be saved for future needs or repaid to previous obligations. We are currently experiencing a recession of attention, so expenditures of concern must be carefully monitored. On paper, we average less than one concern per day, but we are indeed exchanging them. They just get lost in the calculations. Story 114. Just accept the chaos and know you were right when things go wrong. Additionally, I am a Philadelphia fan, so I have trained myself to stop caring. Story 115. I have had suicidal thoughts for as long as I can remember, even since I was 4 years old. Even when I am in a good place, I experience multiple thoughts daily. I do not actually desire to die, and I have family, so I could never do that to them even if I wanted to. But still, it feels like a superpower. I do what I want as long as it has a positive impact, is rooted in good intentions, and involves no victims. Basically, if I can no longer do what I want, I will just say goodbye. I understand how that sounds, and it may not be right, but this mindset has allowed me to be completely myself throughout my life and to achieve things most would have never thought possible. I always do, say, and eat what I want. I dress how I want. I see attractive girls and talk to them. I have found success in multiple career paths that many would consider dream jobs. I have been very lucky, but I would be lying if I said it didn't have to do with not worrying about what others think in a healthy way. I do not care about people's opinions or societal expectations of me. I know myself and my intentions. I still care about my impact on the world around me. I am not a psychopath. I am just completely free. Honestly, the moment I can no longer do what I want, I will just say goodbye. Story 116. Enjoy being ordinary. When you're a child, you desire excitement in your life. Once you become an adult, you find contentment in being an average person. When you reach that point, you truly care less about what others say or want. Story 117. I have a job that pays the bills. I eat healthy, unprocessed foods most of the time. I do not compare myself to others and practice gratitude. I do not obsess over things I cannot control. And I continue to enjoy hobbies that make me feel happy and fulfilled. Story 118. I expect the worst to happen to me, so when it occurs, it is not too shocking and I do not react much. Story 119. It hurts so much inside that anything outside the bounds of your flesh is not even a blip on your radar anymore. It is not advisable. Story 120. Can you do something to change the situation? No? Then don't worry about it. Yes? Then change it. When driving and someone cuts you off, you can't really do anything about it after it happens, so don't get upset. If you see they are about to cut you off, slow down a bit and let them in. Don't worry about it. You'll still get to where you are going. If someone is talking negatively about you, tell them to stop. If they don't worry about it. Your actions will prove them right or wrong. If you make a big deal about it, explode, rant, and yell, people will think they are right. If you just say, hey, stop talking about me. None of what you say is true, and you don't do what they claim you do, other people will notice. Sometimes it takes longer than you want, and other times you need to be more forceful in how you say it. Learning how to just breathe and focus on what matters can take some time. I saw it mentioned, but the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving AF*CK, is a great read. Also, How to UNF*CK Your Brain is good for learning how past experiences affect our emotions and responses today and what can be done about it. Story 121. After a while, after caring about so much, you run out of it. It's true. The other day, I got in the elevator in my building and turned around just in time to see a woman quickly put down her phone, which she had obviously been holding to take a picture. I was the only thing in the elevator she could have been filming. But why? I was just standing there, dressed neatly after an 8-hour workday. 20 years ago, I would have obsessed about it. Did I have something on my ear? Dandruff flakes? Was I going to be on Reddit? YouTube? After about 20 seconds of that, I thought, who cares? Story 122. Most things you realize aren't worth your attention. You come to understand that only a few things truly matter: respect, family, health, and money. Everything else can be disregarded. Story 123. I harbor such contempt for others that it's not about not caring, but being ready to take action. Story 124. You realize that by caring, you allow someone or something else to have control over you. When that realization occurs, it becomes easy to stop caring. Story 125. I tell myself that I don't care what others think of me, that no one else really cares except you. If something happens that you cannot do anything about, just shrug your shoulders and tell yourself, oh well, even if that's not how you really feel. Fake it until you make it. Story 126. The trick is not to force yourself to stop caring. You need to identify what truly matters to you. Your values, your goals, your passions, and the people who are significant in your life. Focus on those. You will naturally stop concerning yourself with everything else, as it is not important. Story 127. If you had a flat tire on the side of the road, could you call someone for help? If not, their opinions should not matter to you. Story 128. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. Story 129. Remember that history probably isn't over. Someday, people will think of us the same way we think of a middle-aged peasant. No one blames them for not changing the world, just for living their lives. It is commendable if you do good, but history will likely forget everything you ever did. Story 130. It's not about not caring at all. It's about choosing where to focus your care. Not everything deserves your attention, and that's a skill I am still working on. Story 131. I used to go through my days completely paranoid about everything, both meaningful and trivial. Was my tone of voice unnatural in that conversation with the cashier? Will that typo on page 3 of my 20-page essay lower my score from 100% to 99%? One of my friends is getting married. Does this mean I will be single forever? I worked very hard to manage my anxiety. If it wasn't clinically obsessive-compulsive, it was very close. Every endeavor, whether for school, something social, or anything else, was agonizing, characterized by self-loathing and a sense that I was never doing enough. But I kept doing enough to succeed. I went to college on an academic scholarship and am now graduating from medical school a year early. I am on a career path where I can comfortably provide for a family and help my parents retire. I love my job, and it makes other people's lives better. Eventually, I was able to build a life that was objectively good. I realized that I now have too many responsibilities to be anxious. I learned to tell that part of my brain to stop bothering me. I have more important things to do than care about the lies I tell myself. I'm thankful to God for how different my life is now compared to how it used to be. Story 132. You just stop caring and worrying so much. Be happy and do your own thing. I'm an introvert. There is only so much I can take in a day. Once I reach my limit, I go to my room and spend the rest of the day gaming. Story 133. Hardly anything really matters. No one will remember the thing that made you mad tomorrow, in a week, or even in a month. So why care? Story 134. I think it's more about weighing whether I can do anything about this, and if so, what the likely outcome is and whether that outcome is worth the effort. My ex used to worry about things she couldn't control all the time. Why waste the mental energy and stress? It's better to formulate a backup plan or a plan to cope with potential difficulties. Story 135. As you age, you will discover that you have a limited number of things that matter to you, and they can run out quickly. Story 136. If you are doing better in life than they are, why should you care? In other words, if you would not switch places in life with them, you should not care. Story 137. It's like the Serenity Prayer, but you can't be bothered to memorize it because there isn't a test. Lord, grant me no cares to give. Story 138. Sit in the driver's seat. You don't want people to control you. Just remember that letting people in is your choice. But when they leave, you aren't in charge. The same logic applies to everything. Story 139. Last weekend, I was about to get close to her. My hand landed, but I ended up passing out. She said, "Babe, you fell asleep while touching me." I replied, "I know, babe." Story 140. I became much less concerned in my 30s. I can only assume I will not be concerned at all in my 60s. Story 141. I never thought about this as I don't really care. Tragic events happen. Funny memes are incoming. Celebrity deaths? There's a 70% chance I haven't heard of them. Laughing at tragedies is how I haven't become depressed yet. Story 142. I believe that once whatever is happening passes, everything will still be there. My bed, family, and money. That way, if something occurs that would normally be an inconvenience, I simply remain unaffected. Story 143. I accept the things I do not have control over. This encompasses everything outside my own actions and attitudes. It means that I enter situations understanding my opinions and ideas may not lead to the outcomes I desire, so I have no significant expectations to concern myself with. This is not a universal principle, but if I do care about something, it is because I have consciously chosen to do so. Story 144. Counter question. Why do you care? If you struggle to find a reasonable answer, you have your answer. Story 145. Your actions aren't worth their time because if their actions aren't worth your time, then the reverse must be true. Story 146. You can only control yourself. Your emotions, actions, and thoughts all belong to you. You can choose not to care. It takes practice, but the more you try, the easier it becomes until eventually, everything negative rolls right off you. Story 147. The tortured savant, DJ Peach Cobbler, has the answer for you. I'm begging you to stop caring. Story 148. If it does not affect me or the people I love directly, then I don't care. There will always be challenges in the world, and there will always be someone calling out and correcting those issues. At work, am I in charge of the group? No. Do I own the company? No. Do I receive a share of the profits from decisions made by management? No. So why should I stress about the decisions made by others? No matter what is decided, my pay rate remains the same while someone else benefits financially. If I don't like it, I can switch jobs. Life is too short to waste on getting upset about someone else's decisions instead of making choices for my own life. I still haven't visited the Maldives, explored Tibetan ruins, seen the aurora borealis in Norway, or enjoyed a slice of pizza along the Amalfi Coast. Enjoy life. Many uncontrollable things will happen, regardless of how good of a person you are. So fill your life with good memories, experiences, and adventures. Don't let your blood pressure rise for anyone but yourself. Take care of yourself and do what makes you happy. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.